You guys hear me? You guys hear me? Good. Thank you all for tolerating this final panel before lunch. Thanks, Media Post, for having me back here. This better, Lori? Good. And about a third of you here know something terrible about me, so this is going to be a fun panel. So our panel is talking about brand safety. Obviously, if you haven't been up to date in the news with everything that's gone down with Google and their various entities of major screw-ups and little kerfuffles, it's become a hot topic. And more so, it's become a scenario where we're talking about their actual revenue loss or postponement of spend. So what we have to stop and think about is how much is actually Google's fault or Facebook, et cetera, and how much of it belongs to the advertiser and the platform. And to really get to the root of that, the first thing we started is we talking about our own brand safety requirements. Now, a quick show of hands, how many in the room, their brand has a brand safety requirements? About a third, which is really concerning. The fact of the matter is, with most brands, especially publicly traded ones, they do have brand safety requirements to say, you can show with this, you can't show with that. So we're going to stop and talk about what it means for brand safety and how we address it. I apologize, I just realized I forgot to do intros. My name is John Kagan. I'm the head of search and biddable media for Mark USA Results Digital. We'll go down the line real fast.
Hi, my name is Kathleen Bongi. I help to manage digital media and performance marketing at Allegheny Health Network, which is one of the largest health systems in the Western PA and Erie region.
Hello, everybody. I'm Rosalind Finn. I am I wish I was director, digital marketing manager at Navistar, which is a holding company. Most people know Navistar as International Trucks, so major trucking industry, OEM.
I'm Michael Wentz. I'm the director of digital communications for Adelphi University located in New York. We're a 121-year-old university with over 100,000 alumni.
Great. So the first question we're going to start out with, and this is somewhat twofold, it's going to be the personal opinion and your company's opinion, and that's the basic. What does brand safety mean to you, and then what does it mean for your brand itself? We'll start with Kathleen.
So brand safety to me means delivering the right content that people are really looking for at the right time, and for us, that means basically the same thing, delivering the right content that people are searching for, sending them on the right page, and making sure that we're targeting the right region so that, people who are searching for access to care in the Western PA and Erie region are, getting access to our website.
I think for our company, brand is really, really important within our industry itself because everybody buys by what they know. We're a 100-year-old company. Everybody wants to make sure that our brand is safe and protected and always in a professional light. So it means making sure that I'm the gatekeeper to the digital realm and that message is conveyed across that. For me, that translates to making sure that I'm doing everything I can to protect that brand by whether it's certain tactics that we'll go through here shortly, but I'm that gatekeeper, and my digital team is that gatekeeper for that.
And at the university, we recently completed an 18-month rebranding strategy. So we had a lot of hours into it, a lot of resources into it. And so now with that, because prior to that, we had surveyed a lot of our alumni, a lot of other people in the New York region area and pretty much across the nation. And a lot of them said, well, I've never heard of you. I've never heard of your university, yet we're the first private higher ed institution on Long Island. And so we said, okay, we got to get the word out there. So with all this work of trying to create this brand and trying to recreate and rebrand a persona, we want to make sure that we're getting it out there, that we're building the reputation. And so when brand safety is important for us is because we want to make sure that with all this work that we've done for the last almost 2 years, we don't want to make sure that we're taking a step back just because we're not paying attention to where our ads are being displayed or where our name is appearing. So we want to make sure that we're also paying equal attention to the brand safety and looking at the other end of it.
So the next one we're going to go to is, do you guys actually have a required or in-house brand safety guidelines? And for example, can you show against news? Can you show against religious content? Can you show against political content? Do you guys actually have one that's formalized, or do you have your own type of one? And can you give us any kind of insight of what it looks like?
Yeah, so working in the healthcare industry, we're pretty heavily regulated. So every ad, whether it's paid search, social, display ads, goes through legal for not only the content that we're delivering, but who we're targeting with that, what URL we're sending them to, making sure that that landing page is the right one we should be sending them to, and also the domains that we're showing up on. So we're pretty heavily regulated, so we make sure that everything goes through legal and compliance for our marketing.
For my industry specifically with international trucks, we don't have a strict guideline. It's more of what makes sense and which consumer segment do we want to pay attention to and make sure they're getting the right message at the right time. We do have other brands within that Navistar holding company. One is defense. Defense is highly regulated. We have federal contracts and we can only advertise certain amounts of things. And so with that comes, does this has to match with what that is that they're wanting to say. So very little advertising can actually go out across that. But it is very challenging and also really fun to try and meet that standard.
Whenever it comes time to try to make policy, or do we have to make policy, do we have to start a guideline, do we have to take resources and say, okay, this is what we need to start building out, you start looking at, well, what is the demand? What is out there? Do we really need to be proactive and create these guidelines, or do we just wait until something big starts happening? Sometimes that's too late. That once reputation gets out there, once that they see your brand on a particular website, then you're starting to scramble. So because of that, because the university's never had a major incident like that, we don't want to wait to be proactive. We want to make sure that we're getting ahead of it now. So we are currently in the development stages of creating a very thought out, very strategic guideline on brand safety, just so that we can stop almost the inevitable.
So just to go back to this for 1 second, though, is there one vertical, or not vertical, but topic or group or type of content you were absolutely not allowed to be associated with or show for? Anything off the top of your heads, or that you guys do have formalized?
Well, for us, we're kind of the reverse. It's kind of fun that we have truckers, right? So where would they want to appear? So we don't always have to restrict. So it's fun to see where we can get the conversions in that. And in my past, see, you got it. In the past, with I've been an agency previous to this position in the industry for 7 years now. We did have some heavy targeting, and one of them was a medical field, and we absolutely could not appear anywhere where their competitor was going to appear. Imagine the struggle with that. You usually want to be there. So that was one of those specific placements that we couldn't be on WebMD, for example. We had to be really careful with that.
So we're just kind of chugging along here. What steps are you guys taking up front, or more of the proactive prevention? I think we've already started going down this a little bit. What do you guys do up front to make sure or try and avoid some of these brand safety mistakes?
We've recently put together a brand auditing document. So we have for Allegheny Health Network, we have every display and social ad with which brand is going to be placed on it. So for example, we have the Allegheny Health Network for Western PA, and then Allegheny Health Network St. Vincent Hospital, so making sure that the ads that are placed in the Erie region have this specific logo, and the ads that are placed in Western PA have the appropriate logo. So we have an ongoing audit document for search, social, and display banners to make sure that before they go out that we're serving the right ones.
For us, it's really using our internal network before they go out, in addition to a few other things. So we have a whole branding team. So they review everything before it goes out, of course. We also have a very robust online style guide that all of our partners use and that we refer to when we go to place and make sure that we're hitting that. So those are the proactive measures. Outside of that, it's really working with our agency to make sure that the placements that we're going to go to meet what our marketing brand team has already put together for us, that we're meeting it.
Yeah, and we also have a very nice built-out team within the university for ad creative, and so they're the ones, like I said, we just completed a rebranding, new logo, new slogan, both for undergrad and grad. So we have our own team, our own copy team that are actually putting everything together, but there are still remnant ads that are still out there that we're seeing, and so we have to be proactive and look for that. But it's also relying on an ad agency to make sure, there's nothing wrong with asking for help. So we make sure that we have an ad agency contracted with, we make sure that we have a PR company on retainer, just so that we can, be proactive and say this way, if something does happen, then we're right there for it. But we always see, the old remnant ads that are out there, and we do what we can to try to track it down. But yeah, we want to make sure we have a style guide. We have internal workshops within the university because we have 8 different schools within it, and so we want to make sure that everyone's educated on how the brand is supposed to be used.
So, kind of going deeper into this, let's be honest, we've all been got caught once or twice in our career in spots where our ad shouldn't have. Perfect example, I had a financial service client whose ad we found on a high-end escort website. Wasn't the ideal situation for us. We had to take action to address it, prevent it, and move forward, and how to prevent it from going forward. Not specifically saying where you guys may have been caught or may have had the incidents, but what scenarios have you run into, and how have you reacted from that?
Yeah, so I think we've all gotten a screenshot of an ad placement with a bunch of question marks asking why that's showing up that way. So what we do is, obviously pause it immediately, look into what happened, like what kind of targeting was going on, and then putting together, we have a domain exclusion document, so making sure that we refresh that and take a look at what websites we're showing up on.
For me, I'm going to go a little bit into the history. Back in February, I had a client before I took this role in the medical field again, and for some reason it was elderly hearing aids is the vertical, and they showed up in YouTube against venereal diseases. So that was fun. That was a good one. You can imagine the extreme measure we had to go to with that one, not only telling them what we did to fix it, which was really just taking them out of that placement, but then putting in very strict topics and placements against it across all GDN, not just YouTube. So we kind of went from just this passive, we're doing what we can, staying within your guidelines of where you want to place in domains, and then excessively negatively targeting that.
So the 3 main groups that we have all of our advertising, our digital advertising and our search for people that are looking for it. We do prospecting keywords, and we also do retargeting. Cookie pull retargeting almost equates to 50% of our conversions, our lead gen. And because of that, it's if they come to our site and then they go to somewhere else, their retargeting ads can appear. We did have one incident where our retargeting ad did appear on a controversial site, and of course, without, it's not an offline email, but it's someone taking a screenshot, tweeting it out, saying, Adelphi University advertised on this site. So of course we had to take immediate action. We did the domain exclusion. And for us, it's a little bit challenging because with retargeting being so big for us, we don't exactly want to just, we're kind of limited to just domain exclusions because there's another option of being able to do it based on categories. One category that you can actually take out the vertical is death and murder. But our research shows that a good number of our remarketing ads are found on findagrave.com, where people are trying to look up where celebrities have been buried. And we're getting lead generation from that, and qualified lead generation from that. So we don't exactly want to exclude that vertical just because it could, we may not want our ad to appear. So we're kind of limited to where we want to just do the domain exclusions.
First, Roz and Michael, I want to thank you for being the first to say venereal disease, death, and murder on stage, and not letting me being the first one to do it today.
You're welcome.
So that broke the ice. So let's talk about some of the more direct issues going on. We all know what's going on with YouTube. We all recall what happened with Facebook. How are you all addressing those scenarios? Are you having to, some of the big brands have pulled out. Some of the big brands are demanding make goods and refunds. How are you all addressing these things? Is it impacting you at all?
No. So for us, it's really using audience lists against what we're already placing to, and then using the normal placement, and so really negatively targeting audience lists for us. So the ones that we know have already converted, we're making sure that we're not showing where we don't want to be, obviously. So, or making sure that we're also appearing where we want new consumers. Holistically, though, we haven't really been impacted for international trucks for this specific question, but I think that really using audience lists is a good way to make sure that you're hitting where you want to hit and negatively getting rid of those that you don't.
We have a good success with using audience lists, particularly anyone who has showed interest. We do customer match lists advertising, both in social and in search, for anyone who has either filled out an inquiry form who wants to learn more about our 180 plus undergrad and grad programs, to starting an application but not filling it. So basically that whole empty, the abandoned shopping cart theory. We want to make sure that we're going after those. And so by doing that, we then, reach back out to them in various channels. But also, again, we're also trying to do it so that we can restart that 90-day cookie pool so we can start retargeting them again.
So more so the fact is it's basically these incidents haven't really affected your investment or your placements within those platforms. You guys are going to kind of keep chugging on.
Yeah.
Okay. So then here's the fun question. Whose fault are these issues? Is it YouTube and is it Facebook? Is it the advertiser? Is it a mix of them? To give you a couple examples, obviously there's the autofill on the search bar on YouTube. That was the latest one. Before that, it was the hate targeting capabilities in Facebook. Before that, it was the showing up next to sketchy content for YouTube. And in addition to that, it was showing up against sexually explicit content that wasn't labeled. So the question is, whose fault actually is it?
I think it comes down to a mix of both. That the platforms themselves have to take a look at the brand safety for what kind of search queries are coming up and take action to make sure that the right ones are coming up and not any inappropriate content, but also the brand itself to make sure that they're auditing where their ads are showing up, and if they do see any screenshots that are sent to them, or if a colleague finds something, to make sure that it's paused and take a look at why it was showing up there and take steps to make sure that it doesn't happen in the future.
I mean, it's easy to point a finger, right? It's easy to say it's that platform, it's their problem. But when push comes to shove in our digital ecosystem, we all know that in the beginning of anything that we do, and a new launch of anything, we really have to be very, very proactive in what we're doing. So you have ownership in protecting that brand, and you have ownership in understanding what you can and can't do there. If it doesn't fit, don't place it, But there's also the other side. Yes, we need to work with YouTube. We need to work with those platforms and make sure that they're getting the message of where we can and can't be. Because if they want our money, then we've got to do it right. They've got to do it right with us. But we have to be a voice for that.
I definitely think it falls within both. I think Morgan said it absolutely hit the nail on the head, where he had said that, yes, you have AI, but you need the human in the pilot seat. You need that human that's going to be able to be there. Something that my mother always told me is that if you point the finger, 3 fingers are pointed back at you. So it's ultimately at the end, it's everyone's responsibility. One, from an individual to say that, but I also think that I do think that YouTube and Google and things like that, they could be doing a better job with the advancement in AI that we're doing to be able to use technology to be able to easily identify these categories a little bit better. Like you said, there's some that are just not labeled, and that's dangerous. That the smaller that difference is, the better it is for us. But having that yeah, I think it's both. I think it comes down to where it's both the human and the brand side and the agents, the Google and all that.
So just a question up on that then. Do you think that the actions they've taken, from YouTube's hiring of 10,000 new human reviewers, the changing of the monetization of videos to 10,000 views first, the elimination of some of these targeting capabilities, is that enough, or is there more proactive things they could be doing to help prevent future scenarios? I know some of it's just theory, but do you guys have thoughts?
I think that yes, I think it's great. It's a great approach. I have a very extensive IT background, and I know just thinking about an antivirus company cannot create a fix for a virus that doesn't exist. So on one hand, you do need something to happen to be able to prevent it or to stop it from happening or stopping from growing. I do think it was great that YouTube did hire 10,000 people. One of the incidents that just recently happened earlier this week, where legal videos put up by minors, 11 and 12-year-old girls, and it wasn't so much the content of the video, it was all the comments that are down below. And right now, there's really nothing in place to use that as a trigger. Now there is, because now major brands started pulling their dollars. And it's always the old saying is you hit them where it hurts. YouTube and Google and Bing, they're all noticing that, that when advertisers start pulling out, especially the big pocket advertisers, that's when things are going to start happening. I do think it's a great in the right direction, but it's more of a reaction, but I do think that there can be still more things they can do on a proactive level.
So moving along here, have you guys looked into any automated ways to help reactively deal with this, or proactively? Like, have you brought in any degree of automation that says whenever a domain comes up with .news, .edu, .in, .ru, it gets put to an exclusion list? Do you guys have anything in process? Have you thought about it?
We're definitely in the process of thinking about it. We're doing that whole famous word, digital transformation, right now. So as we put that into place and we're thinking about that, we think about where we want to be and for each one of our brands, how we want to represent it. So some of that comes from our CMS and marrying that into the overall data where we can block our domains. So the programmatic part of that is definitely getting into play. We're currently not actively doing it, but it's part of our playbook for our fiscal year.
Yeah, and right now we're doing programmatic display, but it's also, like we talked about on the AI panel, it's the combination of the automation plus the human interaction, making sure that you're putting together that domain exclusion so that even though you are doing programmatic buying, you can still kind of, control where your ads are showing up.
So a couple other questions here for you. So some of this has been impact. Some of the major brands, especially in Europe, have taken a stance, say, we don't like where we're showing, we're pulling out outright until the issue is full. So not to say that they're overblowing the issue or not taking the right stance, but what do you guys think? Is pulling out outright the right move for them, or is there a different way they could have handled things from an advertiser standpoint?
I think for major brands that have done this, Adidas and those, I think that they really made the right decision in that moment. You're spending that much money, and what's going to make the GDN network, YouTube, and Facebook, what's going to make them make the biggest change the quickest? Take away the money, right? I think that was a good play for what they needed at that time. And again, as brand representatives and specific on this panel, that's something you have to do. You have to be the active member. You're the only advocate for your brand in this space, so you've got to make sure you're doing what's right for them. I think that tactically, it's really hard to lose that much volume. I would have a hard time just completely ripping myself out of all of social, for example. That would be very hard to do. We have a lot of following there, and we have active members that want to see us there. So there might have been a little give and take, and that maybe just go to the organic side of it and not do the paid anymore, and see if you can fix those within that realm first.
I think the smaller brands are at an advantage because we can dial down. We can slow how much money we're putting out there, not to be completely off, but the people who can, the larger companies who have multi-million dollars in their ad budgets, that they let them do the ones that are doing the pulling, and then the small ones still benefit from that. It's just a trickle-down effect. But if we can just lower it, slow our spend, so that we still appear, but just not appear as much.
So dealing with the backlash of it, a lot of brands have moved from generic targeting to hyper niche targeting. So instead of saying, I'm going to target news junkies, I'm going to target these 5 or 6 news domains. The scenario, because that is you lose, 70, 80% of your volume of traffic, but you're a little bit more sure of the audience. So you can look at it as quality versus quantity, reach and frequency versus just individual customers we know. Do you all find that one approach is better than the other? Like, there's huge financial impacts on both ends if you do one of them. But in your stance, what is probably the best approach?
Doing marketing in the Western PA and Erie region, we definitely take a more niche targeting approach with our audiences. And marketing on local networks, because after doing a media mix analysis, we saw that really performed well since we are in such a niche market. So with our audience targeting and doing like local takeovers and marketing on local sites, we definitely take a more niche approach.
We take the a kind of a combination approach. So knowing our consumer is the first role, and then we have within my industry several segmentations. So the decision maker is more of that fleet manager, so they're the higher up within the realm. So for them, we're gonna target more niche. We know where they're gonna be more than likely, so we're gonna target American trucker, publisher, and stick to those specific domains. But then when we have the owner operators or the people that are actually driving those trucks, that's gonna be a larger brand play. We want to get in front of them. We want them to love our brand because they're going to beg that fleet manager to buy our truck. So we definitely segment very specifically among which group we're wanting to target.
Yeah, and for us, it's a combination of both too. We need to do niche, small, local, and at the same time we do national. Being a university, we have at least 5 major target markets that we're going after, that we have to brand, that we have to build a reputation, whether it's for enrollment basis and we're going after parents of undergraduate students or graduate students, but then also looking at potential alumni or donors. So our messaging is varies based on the target we're going after, but also where we are appearing. What major news sites are we appearing, and what is what are their audiences, and how does that align with who we're trying to target? So we have to try to keep a nice ratio or a nice mix between doing the niche and doing targeted based on what the site is in the publication, but at the same time looking at it from our other tactic, which is the retargeting. We get people to our site, we can, at almost half the cost, or a third of the cost actually, we can retarget to those individuals, so then we can get them to keep coming back to our site. So we want to stay niche and stay local, but at the same time we want to keep going out nationally and broad.
So that concludes our panel of questions, and looks like you're holding the mic to tell me it's time for Q&A.
I am, and it is. Thank you, John. Thank you, panel. Yeah, go ahead. Give him a round of applause. That's great. Thank you. I wanted to ask you folks on the panel if you're bullish on image recognition technology as something that could really help maybe stamp out some of the brand safety issues that are happening on the platforms.
For us, for our industry and what I do, I think that that will only help us. The pretty trucks and the pretty automotive, that helps us in what we do. But I do see that could be a problem for other industries, in the long run. Yeah.
One of the things that we've been researching and that I've been really looking into extensively is because I also oversee all the social activity for the university, that what the trend is that if somebody's actually posting about us, about our company, our brand, if they take a picture of it, they're not mentioning it in the text. So where we could do all these keyword searches and we can do all of this, keyword monitoring, but if they're doing a picture, if we're missing the boat on that, if we're not doing that, we're missing either potential for a threat or potential for a success and for a possible lead. So we are starting to look into it now to get artificial intelligence to start looking at image monitoring software.
Mm-hmm. Great. Any questions from the audience here before we wrap? No? Lori, you have one?
Back there.
Oh, Lori's got one. There you go, Lori.
Oh, Ross.
Oh, in the back. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Brooke Nichols from Canoply, and I have a question specific to John, but if you guys have had conversations with your engine reps, I'd be interested in that. John, judging from your Facebook feed, you've had the opportunity to have in-depth conversations with the engines about their responsibility or what role they may play in protecting a brand, so I was wondering if you could share some insights into their perspective. And if you've had client-specific conversations with them to develop a brand safety strategy.
So the majority of the conversations I've had are private, or more so just confidential, I can't share. I have had a few different opinions depending on the scenario itself. So in the initial crisis that happened back in the spring, where content was showing against extremist content, when I broke it down and looked at what was happening and you start reading the reports, you realize it's not Google's fault. It's the advertiser's fault. It is the agency that they're not doing their job to regularly query and check some of the settings and looking at the videos that they're showing to. Because if it happens against one video impression, that's fine. When you have 10,000 impressions against a questionable video, whose fault is really that? You have all the tools to prevent it. The Facebook incident, that's just a flat-out mistake of no one paying attention to their AI. The next round of incidents with Google showing up against the really sketchy videos for the underage content, Yeah, they kind of messed that up. I will note they did take a good stance. They changed the monetization capabilities of your video views to a minimum of 10,000, which does allow the image recognition to come in and some of the human intervention to help prevent those videos from showing up. The last one about the autofill, can I swear? They fucked up. They fucked up. Let's be honest. If you have the ability set in Google AdWords to prevent that, or in the Google search bar to prevent that, why you're not using the same algorithmic technologies to identify these issues in your YouTube search capability, the second biggest search engine in the world, that's missing the boat. And that was kind of the stance I had. Then they had some questions about why I was writing articles, and things went down a different hill.
Yeah, I was just curious to know, in terms of your, how much responsibility do you think that you should have versus the platforms versus everything else? I mean, when you really think about it, technology is becoming so sophisticated that it is extremely hard to keep up with everything that's happening. But how much do you think you really should be responsible versus the platforms versus something else?
I think that's a really hard ratio to find, right? Because of that issue of the technology. But you want to take as much ownership as you can. That's really what you want to do. You want to make sure that you are doing the search query reports, that you are looking at the domains you're placing in, and you're looking at the environment holistically to perform up to your brand standards, and take as much ownership as you can in that. Yeah.
Sorry, do you want? Yeah, to Rosalind's point, I don't think you can quantify what that percentage really is, but it's, to me, I take the personal approach that if I know about it and I don't act on it, shame on me. You know, that I'm not doing my job to the best ability that I can if I'm aware of a vulnerability and I'm not jumping on it. Not to say that I want to purposely turn a blind eye so that, you know, I can say that, well, that's not my fault, but I think that it's you know, personally, it's my job, my responsibility to stay on top of everything possible that's out there, all the trends, what's happening, the news, and to be able to then take action for it. That I actively seek for it, but I know that, you know, at the same time, you know, I also think that the percentage also belongs to the platform as well.
So just to chime in on that, one of the stances that I have is it's not who's in charge of how much responsibility, it's who picks up the slack. As the advertiser's job to do everything we can to protect our brand. Once we've checked the boxes and executed on every one of those, if an incident still happens, then we turn to the platform and say, you messed up. We did 100% of our job, you did 85% of your job, and then we had a missed problem pop up.
Okay, I think that's a good way to end it. Thank you, John. Thank